This video is about what happened in 2016 in Massachusetts. On Sunday, August 7, 2016, 27-year-old Vanessa Marcotte was visiting her mother, Rosanna, in the small town of Princeton, Massachusetts. On that sunny and warm day, Vanessa, who was usually very active, decided to go for a run. She often took walks outdoors and practiced yoga. In a few hours, she was supposed to take a bus to New York City, where she worked and lived. After going for a run, Vanessa did not return home. Her mother, Rosanna, was very concerned about her daughter's long absence, as this behavior was unusual for Vanessa. Rosanna went to the police for help. This case attracted a lot of national media attention, as this kind of incident had not happened in the small town of Princeton for the past 30 years. In addition, just a few days earlier, another runner and fitness blogger, Karina Vetrano, 30 years old, was involved in a similar incident in a New York City neighborhood. Vanessa Theresa Marcotte was born on June 17, 1989, in Leominster, Massachusetts. She excelled in school and graduated summa cum laude from Boston University in 2011 with a bachelor's degree in communications. After graduation, she worked at an online marketing software startup in Boston called WordStream. Later, she became an account manager in Google's New York City office. About once every 2 months, Vanessa had the opportunity to visit her mother and aunt, who lived in Princeton, a small rural town with a population of about 4,000. As an only child, her mother, Rosanna, always looked forward to her visits. On Sunday, August 7, 2016, at about 1 p.m., Vanessa left her mother's house on Brook Station Road to go for a run. She planned to take the commuter bus back to New York later that day. The area she was running in was familiar to her. However, after several hours passed and Vanessa did not return, her mother contacted the police. Officers immediately began searching the area where Vanessa had likely gone running. At 8:20 p.m., a police dog picked up her trail and led the search team to an area of dense vegetation about 60 yards from the road, less than a mile from Rosanna's home. There, the body of a woman was discovered and quickly identified as Vanessa Marcotte. A preliminary examination of the body left detectives certain that Vanessa's death was criminal in nature. Her body was stripped of clothes, and burn marks were found on her legs, hands, and face. The place where her body was found was secluded, with no nearby houses, only the road and the woods. Vanessa's cell phone and headphones were missing. Despite a thorough search, the police could not locate these items, and they believed the perpetrator had deliberately taken them to avoid leaving DNA traces. Investigators found a sneaker with traces of fire next to the body, leading detectives to believe that the perpetrator used gasoline to destroy evidence. Forensic experts determined that the cause of Vanessa's death was strangulation. She fought for her life, and DNA from an unknown person was found under her fingernails. Her clothes being removed made the motive of the crime clear. The DNA samples were tested, but no matches were found in local or national databases. For the small town of Princeton, this type of crime was shocking and highly unusual. Authorities asked residents of Princeton and the surrounding areas to remain vigilant and report any suspicious activity to the police. On August 11, at a press conference, Worcester District Attorney Joseph Early Jr. confirmed that the perpetrator was likely male and had sustained minor cuts and scratches during his struggle with Vanessa. Vanessa's death devastated her family, friends, and co-workers at Google. A representative from Google described Vanessa as a beloved member of their team, known for her smile, volunteer work, and love of Boston sports. Boston University, her alma mater, also expressed their condolences, with Executive Director Colin Rayleigh stating, "We're so terribly sad for her family and friends." Initially, investigators considered a possible connection between Vanessa's death and an incident involving another runner, Karina Vetrano, just days earlier in New York City. Karina was found strangled in Spring Creek Park, Queens, on August 2, 2016. Despite the similarities, investigators later concluded that the two cases were unrelated. 6 months later, 20-year-old Brooklyn resident Shanna Lewis was arrested after his DNA matched the samples found on Karina Vetrano's body. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Meanwhile, the investigation into Vanessa Marcotte's death continued. Investigators believed the person responsible either lived in or frequently visited Princeton and knew the area well. They also believed that Vanessa and the perpetrator did not know each other and that their encounter was accidental. Law enforcement set up 24-hour phone lines and sought help from the public. Eventually, an eyewitness. Vanessa was reported stopping outside a local convenience store for a drink of water after 1 p.m. on August 7th. She was last seen walking and talking on her cell phone. Investigators believe the attack occurred within the next 2 hours. Her phone was turned off at 2:11 p.m. and has not been turned on since. Police officers were checking many clues, searching the area where her body was found multiple times, as well as the surrounding area, but without success. 3 months later, a new witness came forward. The witness reported twice seeing a dark-colored Ford SUV parked on the curb near where Vanessa's body was found. The hood was up, and outside stood a man between the ages of 25 and 35 who appeared Hispanic. The first sighting was at around 12:45 p.m. with the man talking on his phone. By 2:05 p.m., the hood was down, and no one was visible near the vehicle. Authorities began searching for a Hispanic man who owned a black SUV and allegedly lived near Princeton. On February 23, 2017, over 6 months after Vanessa's death, Worcester County District Attorney Joseph Early Jr. released new details. DNA found on Vanessa's body had been sent to a lab, and a profile was created. The suspect was believed to be a Hispanic male, 20 to 30 years old, of athletic build, medium height, with short or shaved hair. It was also suspected that the man owned or had access to a dark-colored SUV and had visible upper body injuries within days of the attack. About 3 weeks later, a police officer in Worcester County saw a man matching the suspect's description driving a similar vehicle to the one seen the day Vanessa died. The officer quickly recorded the license plate and discovered the owner was 31-year-old Angelo Colin Ortiz, a Puerto Rican native with no criminal history. He was married with 3 children and had lived in Worcester for less than a year. He worked for a FedEx contractor, delivering packages in Princeton and nearby areas. Neighbors described Colin Ortiz as perverted, often making vulgar comments. A former female postal worker in Princeton also reported him making crude remarks in Spanish about her and other women. When asked by police about Vanessa, Colin Ortiz said he did not know her and could not recall if he was in Princeton on the day of her attack. He'd agreed to provide a DNA sample. The test results later showed a match to the DNA found under Vanessa's fingernails. On April 15, 2017, Colin Ortiz was arrested and charged. Prosecutors alleged that on the day of the crime, Colin Ortiz bought $5 worth of gasoline at 2:35 p.m., 6 miles from the scene. By that time, Vanessa had already been killed, and he returned to try to destroy evidence, particularly his DNA on her body. The district attorney argued that the DNA evidence was obtained properly, while Colin Ortiz's attorneys claimed that a language barrier prevented him from fully understanding he could refuse to provide the sample. Colin Ortiz, a U.S. citizen, said he didn't speak or understand English. Despite his defense's efforts, Judge Janet Kenton Walker denied the motion to suppress the DNA evidence on January 11, 2022. Colin Ortiz did not plead guilty to the first-degree murder charge, but in a plea bargain, admitted guilt to second-degree murder, a lesser charge with a shorter sentence. He also pleaded guilty to robbery, which carried a 20-year prison sentence. The Marcotte family agreed to the plea deal to avoid a prolonged trial, expressing relief that the case had ended as they had hoped. In October 2022, Angelo Colin Ortiz was sentenced to life in prison. He will serve 20 years for robbery and then begin a life sentence, with a minimum of 25 years before being eligible for parole. This means he will serve at least 45 years in prison before any chance of parole.